forgot to record روان B و C عشان دولت في الباست. فضلي إجابة A و D. هتقولي لي إيه يا مس أمينة؟
هقول دي.
بس مش إحنا بنتكلم عن 4 decades. إجابة A. أوكي. ليه؟ إجابة A. Remember يا أمينة ما تنسيش وبرضه عبد الرحمن for and since. Right؟ وبرضه during. آدم ركز معايا بياخد ال perfect tense. صح ولا لا؟ صح بياخد ال perfect tense. Automatically ده إجباري بياخد ال perfect tense. Thank you Mr. Adam. Number 17. عبد الرحمن برضه جاب number 17 incorrect. عايزاكم برضه تاخدوا بالكم. These passages أطول سيكة من ال EST exam. يعني EST exam مثلا ممكن يديكوا 700 كلمة. لا أنا بديكوا 900. So it is a bit longer and they get longer. Number 17. Where's Kenzie?
هنا.
Hello, Kenzie.
Hi.
So here, phenomenal creativity was associated with more random connectivity. تمام. What is the discussion الأول يا كنزي عشان نعرف نحل vocabulary word ده. What is the discussion?
هو قصده على الناس اللي هي بتدايفرت من ال usual hubs.
Okay. And what does the word describe?
أنهي phenomenal يعني؟
الكلمة في number 17 عامة. Yeah, phenomenal. What does it describe?
يعني هي يعني مش عارفة يعني هو حاساها صح بس مش on style قوي. مش عارفة.
What are we describing?
يعني حد ب exceptional creativity.
استني بس الكلمة اللي احنا بنوصفها creativity.
أيوة.
صح؟ We're describing the word creativity. Okay. Now, the next thing we need to find which word can describe creativity. Well, phenomenal. What is phenomenal used for?
يعني حاجة perfect مثلا مش عارفة.
حاجة natural. حاجة طبيعي.
اه.
Right? So مثلا memory. مثلا nature. Right? Advanced. What is advanced used for?
concept أو حاجة مش عارفة.
حاجة ليها علاقة بالtime. Right? Or relative to time period. What about abnormal? What's that used for?
حاجة unusual.
Unusual. All right. في آخر حاجة exceptional. What is that used for?
دي تنفع في ال context يعني.
What does exceptional mean?
مش عارفة يعني uncommon
Something that is
rare.
uncommon, something that is rare, something that is above average or superior. So let's eliminate. What could we eliminate?
abnormal عشان
Abnormal,
كده
wish. It's a negative connotation, صح?
أو advanced برضو مش هتنفع.
Okay, good. You're left with A and D. Which would be better?
exceptional.
Exceptional. Good. الإجابة بتاعتنا إجابة D. Phenomenal, although قريب جدا من exceptional, phenomenal is related to the natural world. البيئة الطبيعية. So when you're looking at something phenomenal, احنا بنقارنها بالnatural world بتاعتها. And we're not doing that here. احنا بنتكلم عن talent. بنتكلم عن capabilities or abilities بتاع البني آدم. And so the capabilities or abilities of a person is related to exceptionality or exceptionalism. Question number 18. Hard time هنا يا عبد الرحمن صح كده؟ Number 18. Let me post it up right here. So let's go to Abdurrahman. Let's go back to Abdurrahman. You did not read it أصلا. Why يا عبد الرحمن؟ وأنت عارف. سؤال يا عبد الرحمن. Right? معايا؟
أيوه.
Good. So we're asking about keeping or deleting, right? Should the writer delete information? أنا عايز أشوف هل أنت فاهم when do we delete؟
لو هي كانت off topic عن اللي هو بيتكلم عنه.
Okay, when it's off topic. صح كده؟ صح. Let's read the sentence الأول. السنتنس بيكلمني في إيه؟ إيه التوبيك in focus؟ Well, عبد الرحمن. والباقي برضه ممكن تبعتوا لي في الشات عادي. Right? شوف إذا كان you guys understand the topic and focus. Thank you, Mr. زياد. أستاذ زياد. Right? ركز معي يا عبد الرحمن. What's the topic and focus of the sentence زياد؟
So here it compares the brain activity of the big C creators to the
صح.
airline routes.
Good. بيكلمني عن big C creatives، بيكلمني عن البرين activity بتاعتهم وبيقارنها مع الفلايتس. صح كده؟ So طيب let's check out the next sentence يا أستاذ زياد. بيكلمني عن إيه دلوقتي next sentence؟
هو بيتكلم عن البرين connectivity وبيدي example major airport.
برضو بيكلمني عن ال brain connectivity, right? The brain activity right there. And بيكلم وبيقارنها مع a major airport with flights, right? And also لو بصينا right إذا كنتي بتقولي على ال previous sentence يا أستاذ زياد بيكلمني عن إيه؟
لا ما أعرفش.
بيكلمني عن ال big C creatives, صح؟ So as you can see, this sentence بيجيب الانفورميشن اللي قبليها والانفورميشن اللي بعديها، عامل زي كوبري. استاذ عبد الرحمن قال لي adds unnecessary information. طيب انا عندي السؤال يا استاذ. let's go to أمينة. So Mrs. Amina, when do we delete information?
لو كانت redundant أو off topic.
Redundant or off topic. فعبد الرحمن قال لي إجابة B. هل ده السبب نعمل delete على information؟ Right? Would this be one of our reasons to delete information? Good job, Ziad. No. Adds unnecessary information. ده مش سبب يا عبد الرحمن to delete. You delete يا إما off topic يا إما redundant. So ما ينفعش إجابة B. أساساً as a reason. It's C or D. And طبعاً الإجابة بتاعتنا إجابة C. It sets up the following quote. Very good job there, guys. Question number 19. I'm surprised. احنا جبنا question number 19 incorrect, right? Question number 19. Usually, right? Here's number 19. Number 9 said, right? It's a quote. What can I put before a quote? يا إما colon يا إما comma. يا ده يا ده. Right? عبد الرحمن قلت لي إجابة A. وما ينفعش, right? فلان said. Builder, comma. said, comma. قبليها. Right? اتفضلي كنزي.
خلاص أنا فهمت خلاص.
Okay. So remember, when you're dealing with a quote, يا إما أقول فلان said, or الquote said these are the acceptable ways. يا اما الكوما قبل الكوت او الكوما بعد الكوت، بس لازم حد بيكلم. لازم حد بيكلم. Number 20. I'm surprised we got number 20 incorrect. يا عبد الرحمن صح؟ This is one of these questions. Let's go to Kenzie, right? So here, Miss Kenzie,
Okay.
who made efforts? The researchers, the artists, they, or the subjects?
The researchers.
How do you know?
علشان هو بيتكلم على مين اللي بيطبق experiment أو مش
مين
عارفة.
بيطبق experiment, right? Who's applying the experiment? Who's making sure the experiment صح? So عبد الرحمن قال لي إجابة B, right?
الارتست والسبجكتس هما نفس الحاجة، هما الاتنين اللي بيتعمل فيهم الاكسبيرمنت.
صح؟ هو بيتعمل فيهم الاكسبيرمنت. So الارتست طبعا مش هيعمل age, sex and race comparison. It'll be the researchers. Thank you, Mrs. Kenzie. Let's go to question number 21. عندي سؤال. Let's go to Ziad. Oh, wrong question.
Yes, yes.
خليني بس upload question number 21. Now, أستاذ زياد قلت لي إيه في number 21؟
21, I choose C.
C?
But I didn't have time, so I picked anything.
You did not have time. Okay. السؤال بقى. إيه الفرق؟ إيه إحنا ممكن نقول غلط عشان بدينا example. إيه الفرق بين B, C و D? Do you know the difference?
No.
No. Does anybody know the difference between ال three things دولت؟ هقول لكم التلاتة دولت نفس الحاجة. They introduce a second example. طيب إيه الفرق؟ عشان في فرق. اتفضلي يا أمينة.
أنا عارفة إن furthermore قبلها بتكون في example وبندي example تانية بعديها.
Okay.
for instance يعني for
I mean, they're all
instance
second example.
بنشرح حاجة بعد كده بندي example.
برضو acceptable, but they all mean a second example. الفرق ما بينهم. Furthermore is for independent idea. Additionally is for an independent idea. In addition to is a dependent idea. مش كده جاب دي أفضل إجابة. It's actually a grammar question. In addition to introduces a dependent clause. Right? When you're dealing with a transition عامة زي إجابة B, C or A, احنا بنقدم or we're introducing independent clauses. هنا in addition to introduces dependent clauses. جميل. Any questions here, beautiful people? Okay. Stop right here. خليكم معايا. Stop right here. خليكم معايا. مش هنكمل writing طبعا. هنخش على ايه دلوقتي؟ هنخش على reading. اشمعنى يا ايه مس كنزي؟ فصلتي. ليه كده بسرعة كده؟ It is quite heavy. هأبلود the reading passage دلوقتي. It's also going to be one of our reading passages, anti-hack reading passages. ادوني بس دقيقة واحدة so I can upload the reading passage. We're on science passage 13. right? November 4, science passage 13. We could do fiction. Why not? Let's do fiction. Fiction passage 2. Pride and Prejudice. اوكي عايز كل حد يرجع للكلاس روم، اعملوا ريفرش على البيج، اعملوا ريفرش على البيج، هنلاقي November 4 fiction passage 2. سمعت أستاذ آدم؟ I changed all the answers and questions in Mrs. Kenzie, so don't worry about that. I upgraded it. هتعملوا الباسج ده timed. هتعملوا الباسج ده timed. Are we ready? كلنا جاهزين؟ في حد مش جاهز؟ No. Mr. Adam, ارجع تاني. Yes. November 4, passage 2, fiction. It's reading. جميل. خش عليها. خش على step 3. خش على timed. We need a 10. أنا مش عايز 7 or 6. أنا عايز 10. 3, 2, 1. Begin. Let it load. ليه كده؟ Let me see these scores. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. إيه يا عبد الرحمن؟ طيب كنزي كويس. بعد ما تخلصوا ابعتوا لي done. Everybody should be done. فاضلكم مثلا دقيقة دقيقتين. اوكي أمينة. اوكي عبد الرحمن. اوكي آدم. What's going on there يا أمينة؟ زوز. Whew. Okay. Let's use عبد الرحمن's paper. كنزي كل حد شايف درجات بتاعتكم, right? And obviously ده جاي من مصدر ال EST. Okay. The actual website اللي بيجيبوا عليها الباسجات وكده. The Gutenberg Press. الreading والwriting الاثنين. Yeah. Okay, so give me بقى a few seconds. Let me just أصور الباسج وأنزلها. How was the passage? Hard. Okay, so as انتم شايفين هنا you have the passage على الشمال, right? الأسئلة هيبقى على اليمين. So let's actually go through the passage الأول before we do anything else. انجز يا عبد الرحمن because it's your paper that I'm going to work with. أول حاجة أنصحكم نقرأ الباسج. Don't try to skip the passage. برضو do not skim the passage. Do not skim. Skimming is bad. انتوا فاكرين skimming حاجة كويسة وهتسرعوا كده. Don't do that. Just read through the passage. Take your time. Take maybe 5 minutes. أقصى حاجة 6 minutes to read through the passage. So let's read here. Right. Miss Bennett sees Bingley's arrival as an opportunity for one of the girls to obtain a wealthy spouse, and she therefore insists that their husband call on a new rival immediately. So Mrs. Bennett, Mr. Bingley, her husband comes. في عريس جاي للبيت. So not all that, Mrs. Bennett, however, all right, this is important. these types of things. The however here is an important point to have عشان بيورينا اختلاف, right? The assistance of her 5 daughters could ask on the subject was sufficient to draw from her husband any satisfactory description of Mr. Bingley. So العريس جاية عايزين يسألوا Mr. Bingley على description. They attacked him in various ways with barefaced questions, ingenious suppositions, and distant surmises, but he eluded the skill of them all, and they were at his last obliged to accept the second-hand intelligence of the neighbor, Mrs. Lucas. So again, مهما كان اللي عملوها, they tried to get Mr. Bingley يقولوا information عن العريس, بس رفض, فجاب له information from Mrs. Lucas, right? Lady Lucas, her report was favorable of Sir William. He was quite young. وده بقى a description of Sir William. So you know the setting is all about a groom has come. وبرضو نيجي نفكر عن the characters. You talk about Mrs. Bingley, Mr. Bingley. You're talking about Mrs. Lucas. You're talking about Bardu, the Sir William. Sir William. So quite a few characters here, في passage هنا. So here, nothing could be more delightful. To be fond of dancing was a certain step towards falling in love, and very lively hopes of Mr. Bingley's heart were entertained. عايزين يتجوزوا البنات, right? عندهم 5 بنات عايزين يتجوزهم. If I can, so مين بيكلم هنا? Mr. Bingley. If I can but see one of my daughters happily nettled in another field, said Mrs. Bennet, okay, Mrs. Bennet, أنا آسف, to her husband, and all the others equally well married, I shall have nothing to wish for. So all of this, or the whole passage, is all about marriage, right? In a few days, Mr. Bingley returned Mr. Bennet's visit and sat about 10 minutes with him in his library. So the بعد كام يوم. He had entertained hopes of being admitted. And so, عايزين تاخدوا بالكم بحاجة, a change in setting, right? So now Mr. Bingley had Mr. Bennet in the library. He had entertained hopes of being admitted to a sight of the young ladies of whose beauty he had heard much, but he saw only the father. احنا بنتكلم عن مين دلوقتي here? Mr. Bennet, right? You have to know the pronouns دولت. Who are we talking about في التكست عشان منتوهش? The ladies were somewhat more fortunate, for they had the advantage of ascertaining from an upper window that he wore a blue coat and rode a black horse. So Mr. Bennet العريس عايز يشوف البنات, عايز ياخد فكرة عن البنات, بس شايف الأب, right? شايف بس الأب. The new setting, another one. Let's do purple. An invitation to dinner was soon afterwards dispatched. So now we're going to talk about a dinner party. So, and already had Mrs. Bennet planned the courses that were to do credit to her housekeeping when an answer arrived which deferred it all. Mr. Bingley, and مش عارف, مش لازم أفهم كل details. Mr. Bingley was obliged to be in town the following day, and consequently unable to accept the honor of their invitation. So the father معرفش يجي dinner invitation. Miss Bennet was quite disconcerted. She could not imagine what business he could have in town so soon after his arrival in Hertfordshire, and she began to fear that he might always be flying about from one place to another and never settled another field as he thought to be. Whatever, right? So they had problems ما بين Mr. و Mrs. Bingley. هو على طول مسافر. Lady Lucas quieted her fears. So Lady Lucas, one of the characters, quieted her fears by little starting the idea of his being gone to London, only to get a large party for the ball. And a report soon followed that Mr. Bingley was to bring 12 ladies and even gentlemen with him to the assembly. So ده طبعا قلق, right? The girls grieved over such a number of ladies, but were comforted that day before the ball by hearing that instead, عايزين تاخدوا بالكم here برضو, the girls were grieved. So العريس راح London, right? And he met a lot of ladies. And the girls, the daughters were sad. The daughters were upset. That instead of 12, he had brought 6 with them from London, his 5 sisters and a cousin. And when the party entered the assembly room, it consisted only of 5 altogether: Mr. Bingley, his 2 sisters, the husband of the eldest, and another young man. Okay. Mr. Bingley was good-looking and gentlemanlike. He had a pleasant countenance and easy, unaffected manners. His sisters were fine. These are descriptions of the people. I think I'm a little confused here. Yeah. So Mr. Bingley, again, he's visiting with his 2 sisters and other people, right? With Al-Aris, Mr. Bingley. Mr. Bennett is the father. بيتكلم عن how he looks. His sisters were fine women with an air of decided fashion. Again, how people look. Mr. Hurst merely looked the gentleman, but his friend, Mr. Darcy, new characters. So خدوا بالكم, when you have new characters, soon drew the attention of the room by his fine, tall person, handsome features, noble mien, and report which was in general circulation within 5 minutes. So this is important here. Actually, Mr. Darcy is a handsome man. وكل أحد ركز عليه. He attracted all of the people. Mr. Darcy attracted all of the people. The gentleman pronounced him to be a fine figure of a man. The ladies declared he was much handsomer than Mr. Bingley. So big thing here, right? So again, you have the family, you have Mr. and Mrs. Bennett, the father and the mother. They have 5 girls. وفي عريس, right? Mr. Bingley راحوا يسافروا مش عارف ايه, وبرضه وعمل حفلة, right? عمل a party. And so at this party بقى are برضه 2 more characters, Mr. Darcy and Mr. What was his other name? Hurst. So Mr. Darcy is a handsome man that everybody seems to like. So let's continue here. He was married, Mr. Darcy. Was he married? Hurst. Hurst was married. Thank you there. Let's continue. So he was looked at with great admiration for about half the evening until, look at this right here. I want you guys to pay attention to conflicts, right? To conflicts. Here's a conflict. His manners, اسلوبه كان وحش, right? Gave a disgust which turned the tide of his popularity. So this is really important information هنا في الtext section. It shows conflict between characters. He was discovered to be proud, to be above his company and above being pleased, and not all his large estate in Derbyshire could save this from him having the most forbidding, disagreeable countenance and being unworthy compared to this friend. So طلع Mr. Darcy ده فاكس, right? Prideful. Mr. Bingley soon had himself acquainted with all the principal people in the room. Okay, عرفوا بعض. He was lively, unreserved, you know, danced, was angry that the ball closed so early, and talked of giving one himself another field. Such amiable qualities must speak for themselves. So this is important information. برضو بيوصف Mr. Bingley, right? So it turned out Mr. Bingley is the cool guy, right? An original Aris. What a contrast between him and his friend. Look at the simple sentence here. Simple sentence. That بيقول لنا important information. Mr. Darcy danced only once with Mrs. Hurst and once with Mrs. Bingley, declined being introduced to any other lady, and spent the rest of the evening in walking about the room, speaking occasionally to one of his own party. His character was decided. He was the proudest, most disagreeable man in the world, and everybody hoped that he would never come here again. Amongst the most violent against him was Mrs. Bennet, whose dislike of his general behavior was sharpened into particular resentment, having slighted one of her daughters. Right? So Mrs. Bennet أكتر واحدة بتكرهه عشان he slighted or he insulted one of her daughters. Okay, so lots of information here. Let's go to the first 2 questions. Question number 1 and question number 2. Now, this was an evidence-based question. Sahih Abdurrahman, and we got this incorrect. Let me go برضو أرفع برضو question number 2 right here. So which of the following can be assumed about Mrs. or Lady Lucas, right? Which of the following can be assumed about Lady Lucas? الفكرة كلها بقى عبد الرحمن جاب evidence correct 61 until 66. And حتى here, look at this. أما قريت الباسج ما كنتش عارف كان في evidence هنا. Because it's important information you should be able to identify. Well, that's all evidence. And as evidence-based question, we want to summarize, right? Lady Lucas quite interferes a little by starting the idea of his being gone to London only to get a large party for the ball. And reports soon followed that Mr. Bingley was to bring 12 ladies and 7 gentlemen to the assembly. So, لو عملت summary information اللي هنا, what would I say about the situation? A report from London reached Lucas, right? Lady Lucas. Now, عبد الرحمن, انت قلت لي دلوقتي, right? Answer D. ليه؟ unmute يا عبد الرحمن. ليه قلت لي answer D؟ عشان الافرنس هنا اجابتي بيقول لي ايه الاول؟ معناها ايه؟ عبد الرحمن شكله نايم. Who else said answer D? Right? An antsy woman معناها بتتكهرب بسرعة. هي ما بتتكهربش بسرعة. She's not antsy. لو قلنا ده الافرنس about Lady Lucas, احنا ممكن نقول الافرنس ده بيقول لي Lady Lucas بيجي لها reports, right? And why would she be eager for the Donnets to leave her home برضه, right? No, she has connections beyond Hertfordshire. Why would we say that? عشان هي عارفة اللي بيحصل في لندن. So واضح لو هي عارفة اللي بيحصل في لندن, then she has connections beyond their city. Question number 67. The girls grieved. What did they grieve, Yazid?
They agreed because the gentleman came back with like 12 women.
Yeah, so
But they
what
didn't
is the
know.
context, Yazid? The gentleman, the man they love, came back with 12 women, right? They had so many women. So let's look at question number 3. Let me actually upload it here. Forgot to upload it. So he came back with a bunch of women. So the girls and these girls عندهم, عايزين يتجوزوا الراجل ده, بس الراجل ده جاي with many women. So they grieved. صح؟ Womanizer مثلا, right? So they grieved. احنا ممكن نقول they were heartbroken. صح? They were heartbroken. So here you go with answer B or C. Beamed means to be happy. Miserable means to be like hateful, بيكرهوا حياتهم, whatever, right? So did they mourn? Or did they feel heartbroken? Well, المشكلة, with heartbroken, that means أساسا في علاقة ما بينهم خلاص, right? They've never seen him بالظبط. Thank you, Kenzie. المشكلة في heartbroken, خلاص في relationship ما بينهم الاثنين. خلاص شافوا بعض, عرفوا بعض, أساسا ما شافوش بعض. So they can't really be heartbroken, but they can mourn. What does mourn mean? It means to be sad, right? And grieve معناها ايه برضو? It means to be sad. So answer B, أفضل in context then answer C. Number 4, which of the following best describes the narrator? So this is a question انتوا هتشوفوها في ال EST exam, right? So هيسألك, you know, so question number 4 هيسألك حاجة عن ال narrator عشان ال narrator برضو يعتبر character في الستوري. ال narrator برضو يعتبر character في الستوري. Now المشكلة بتاع عبد الرحمن بيقول لي إجابة B, concerned and emotional. المشكلة the narrator is not emotional. The narrator does not show emotion, right? And dogmatic and pontifical, that means holy, right? اللي علاقة religious, right? Yes, عبد الرحمن. قاعد بسأل انت فين وانت ما بتردش عليا يا عبد الرحمن. So the narrator is involved. Well, is the narrator involved? يعني مدخل نفسه برضو? No. The narrator here is insightful and direct. Insightful يعني narrator يقدر يدينا details عن ال characters, and direct يعني بيدينا ال details من غير يدخل رأيه. من غير يدخل رأيه. Question number 5. If you guys have any questions, please feel free and let me know. Mrs. Bennett's reaction to Mr. Bingley's friend is similar to the reaction of which the following. So, Mrs. Amina, how does Mrs. Bennet react to Mr. Bingley?
يعني في الأول يعني
When they met, مش في الأول. صح؟
هي كانت شايفاه handsome وكانت عايزة تتجوز واحد لبناتها.
Okay. So, سؤال. نقول في الأول, how did she see him? أو سمعت إيه كان سمعته؟
معرفش.
He was, you know, راجل مكون نفسه, the catch of the day, عايزة تتجوز بناته. بس بعد ما عرفته في البال أو في البارتي, how did she view him?
She was disgusted.
She was disgusted.
يعني from his man.
So which answer shows us a similar situation?
أنا مش شايفة هي ليه بيه صراحة.
عشان Mr. Bingley is handsome, he looks good, مكون نفسه, بس شخصيته مش كويسة. So من بره كويس ولكن من جوه مش كويس. Right?
بس مش عارف يعني pregnant يعني odor يعني ريحتها حلوة يعني strong.
No, pungent. Pungent
أيوة
means
strong.
a stinking
strong.
odor. When something has a
ماشي.
pungent odor, when you say strong odor, that means it's a bad smell.
ماشي okay.
Right? Let's continue. Question. Actually, we have to stop here. We're going to stop here because I have a class right now. Do you guys have any questions before we end today? لو عندكم أي أسئلة ممكن تبعتوا لي في الشات. وبرضو عندي الإكسبلانيشن مكتوب للباسج ده. هدور عليها وممكن أنزلها أما أجي أنزل الهومورك. Do you guys have any questions before we go? Thanks for coming. You can learn anything. Let's just him out. Bye.